Some people apologize before they even speak, before they ask, before they take up space. Their words arrive wrapped in caution. Sorry to bother you. Sorry, this might be stupid. Sorry, I know you're busy. It is not politeness. It is not humility. It is a quiet belief that their presence requires permission. They learned, slowly and without ceremony, that being visible could be inconvenient, that needing too much air, too much time, too much care might cost them connection. So they learned to shrink, to soften their edges, to make themselves easier to ignore. This documentary explores the psychology of those who feel they must apologize simply for being here. Not because they are wrong, but because somewhere along the way, existence itself began to feel like a disruption. This is not a story about weakness. It is a story about adaptation, about people who learn to survive by becoming small, quiet, and careful, and what it costs to live that way. This chapter explores how apologizing becomes an emotional reflex, often learned early, before conscious thought or choice. The first apology is rarely remembered. It does not arrive as a clear moment. It seeps in quietly, shaped by tone rather than words. A sigh when they speak too loudly. A pause when they ask for help. A look that says, "Not now." Over time, the nervous system learns the pattern. Attention equals risk. Needs equal tension. Visibility equals potential rejection. So the body begins to apologize before the mind can intervene. This is why the apology comes automatically. Before requests, before opinions, before emotions, it becomes a preemptive peace offering. A way of saying, I will not demand too much from you. For these individuals, apologizing is not about guilt. It is about safety. It is a strategy learned when emotional space felt conditional. They are not saying sorry for what they did. They are saying sorry for taking up room. And once this reflex forms, it becomes difficult to distinguish politeness from self-erasure. This chapter traces the roots of chronic apologizing to childhood environments shaped by emotional unpredictability or scarcity. Many who apologize for existing grew up reading rooms instead of being held by them. They learned early how to monitor moods, how to adjust themselves to keep peace intact. Sometimes the caregivers were overwhelmed, sometimes distant, sometimes loving but inconsistent. The message was rarely spoken aloud, but it was felt. Your needs are negotiable. So the child became perceptive, attuned, careful. They learned to sense when they were too much, when their sadness lingered too long, when joy became noisy. Over time, self-expression was replaced with self-monitoring, desire with restraint, presence with caution. Apologizing became a way to stay connected without risking rejection, a way to exist without demanding accommodation. These children did not stop needing. They simply learned to need quietly. And adulthood does not erase this learning. It carries it forward, disguised as politeness, humility, or being easy to be around. But beneath it lives a child who learned that love worked best when they asked for less. This chapter explains the psychological and neurological mechanisms that turn apologizing into an automatic response. From a psychological perspective, chronic apologizing often lives in the nervous system, not the personality. It is a trauma-adapted response shaped by repeated emotional uncertainty. When the brain associates self-expression with relational threat, it activates protective behaviors. The apology becomes one of them. Neuroscience shows that the brain prioritizes connection over authenticity when safety feels uncertain. Being accepted matters more than being known. So the nervous system learns to soften every interaction. This is why apologies appear even when no mistake exists. They are not rational decisions. They are conditioned responses. The body says, lower the risk, reduce the impact, make yourself easier to accept. Over time, this conditioning becomes identity. The person believes they are simply too much or naturally apologetic. But what looks like personality is often history, a system shaped by years of subtle emotional negotiation. The apology is not weakness. It is a survival language the body never forgot. This chapter explores the internal tension between wanting connection and fearing self-expression. Inside these individuals lives a contradiction, a desire to be seen, paired with a fear of being too visible, a longing for closeness, paired with an instinct to retreat. They want to speak honestly. They also want to remain safe, so they apologize for their feelings before sharing them. They minimize their pain. They soften their joy. They preempt rejection by rejecting themselves first. This inner conflict is exhausting. Every interaction requires calculation. Every sentence is edited in real time. And yet, silence feels lonely. They are not afraid of connection. They are afraid of the cost of it. Afraid that if they stop apologizing, something will be withdrawn. Affection, approval, access. So they continue the dance, offering less, asking gently, existing carefully, not because they lack worth, but because worth once felt conditional. This chapter marks the subtle turning point where awareness begins, often quietly and without drama. Awareness does not arrive loudly. It appears in small moments, noticing the apology leave the mouth before the thought forms, realizing discomfort when someone says, "You don't need to say sorry," feeling the weight of constant self-correction. This awareness is not judgment. It is recognition. For the first time, the pattern is seen as learned, not inherent. The behavior is observed without shame. And in that recognition, something loosens. The apology pauses just for a second, long enough to feel the vulnerability underneath, long enough to sense the fear that has been carrying the voice. This is not transformation. It is simply clarity, a quiet understanding that the habit was once protective, and that it may no longer be necessary in every moment. Nothing changes immediately, but something becomes visible, and visibility changes everything. This chapter explores what happens when people begin allowing themselves to exist without justification. As awareness deepens, presence begins to feel different, less defended, less negotiated, not louder, not forceful, just less apologetic. This is not about asserting dominance or confidence. It is about allowing breath to occupy space without explanation. For some, this feels unsettling, even unsafe, because the apology once guaranteed connection. Letting it go feels like stepping into emotional unknowns. But slowly, moments emerge where nothing is taken away, where presence does not rupture bonds, where existing plainly does not create loss. These moments rewire the nervous system. Gently, gradually, the body learns that being here is not an intrusion. That silence does not require justification. That needs do not automatically threaten belonging. This is not a performance of worth. It is a quiet acceptance of it. This final chapter offers a poetic reflection on what it means to exist without shrinking. There is a particular softness in people who once apologized for being alive. A sensitivity shaped by years of careful listening. A depth earned through restraint. They do not need to lose this softness to stop apologizing. They only need to stop confusing gentleness with erasure. Existence does not require defense. Presence does not require permission. The world does not fracture when they speak without apology. Relationships do not collapse when they take up room. Often, the opposite happens. They become more real, more felt, more alive, not because they changed who they are, but because they stopped asking forgiveness for it. And in that quiet shift, something profound settles in. Being here is not a mistake. It never was.